You pay your bills on time. You've built some stability. Maybe even more than your parents ever had. So why does it still feel like it could all disappear at any moment? Why do you check your bank account right after getting paid? Not to plan your life, but just to make sure the money is still there. There's no emergency, nothing is wrong, but your body doesn't know that. Because for you, money was never something that meant safety. It was something that could change without warning. And once that gets wired in early, stability doesn't feel like a baseline. It feels like a temporary condition. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you probably remember this without realizing it. Money wasn't always openly discussed, but you could feel it. The tension in the house when bills were due, the silence around certain conversations, the sudden shifts between "we're okay" and "we need to be careful now." No one sat you down and explained it clearly, but you learned something anyway. You learned that money wasn't stable. It moved, it disappeared, it came back. It created stress. And most importantly, it wasn't something you could relax around. So now, as an adult, even if your income is consistent, even if your life is objectively more stable, your nervous system is still waiting for the moment it all changes. That's why you don't feel done. That's why stability doesn't land. And it shows up in small moments, like checking your account more often than you need to. Not because you're budgeting, but because you're bracing. You're not looking for information, you're looking for reassurance. And the problem is, reassurance doesn't last, because the feeling underneath isn't logical, it's learned. There's a moment most people don't talk about. That quiet second after you pay all your bills. Everything is covered. Nothing urgent is left. And instead of relief, there's tension. Like you just survived something, not completed something. That's the difference. For you, money doesn't move in cycles. It moves in threats. Each month isn't a routine. It's something you get through. And even when you get through it successfully, your body doesn't update the result. It just resets the countdown. That pattern didn't start with you. It started when normal didn't feel predictable. When stability came and went, when one month felt okay, and the next one didn't. And no one explained why, so you stopped trusting stability. Not consciously, but emotionally, because something that disappears without warning doesn't feel safe to rely on. So now, when your income increases, you don't feel relief, you feel cautious. You don't think, "this is good." You think, "don't get used to it." That thought is quiet, but it shapes everything. It's why upgrading your life feels uncomfortable, even when you can afford it, because part of you is already imagining having to undo it. Cancel the subscription, sell the car, cut back again, not because it's happening, but because it feels like it could, at any moment. So instead of relaxing into stability, you hold back from it. You stay slightly below what you could enjoy, because that feels safer than building a life you might have to dismantle. And to compensate for all of this, you try to stay in control. You track your spending. You monitor your accounts. You stay aware. But here's where it gets complicated. The more you monitor, the less safe you feel, because you're constantly interacting with money as a problem to manage, not as a system that supports you. Even small purchases start to feel bigger than they are. You hesitate, you calculate, you justify. Not because you can't afford it, but because your brain treats every decision like it could lead to something worse. So a simple expense becomes a negotiation. And that negotiation isn't about the money. It's about preventing a future that hasn't happened. You feel responsible for avoiding problems that don't exist yet. That's exhausting. And it creates a strange contradiction. From the outside, You're stable. You save money. You're consistent. You're careful. But internally, you're still in survival mode because your system never updated what safe means. To you, safe doesn't mean I have enough. It means nothing is going wrong right now. And those are very different things. One is stable, the other is temporary. So even your savings don't feel like security. They feel like protection, like something you'll need eventually. That's why having more money doesn't fully change the feeling. Because the issue was never just the amount, it was the meaning. Money, for you, was never neutral. It was emotional. It represented tension, uncertainty, responsibility. So now, even when it's stable, your relationship with it isn't. And this is where most people get stuck. They think the solution is more control, more tracking, more discipline, more awareness. But you've already tried that. And it didn't create peace. It just made you more involved in the tension. Because control isn't the same as safety. Control is what you do when you don't feel safe. And if you never update that feeling, you just keep increasing the control without ever reaching the point where you can relax. So what does relaxing with money actually require? It's not about having more. It's about allowing stability to be normal. Not something you question. Not something you monitor constantly. Something you live inside. And that starts in a very uncomfortable place. Doing less. Checking your account less often. Letting money sit without verifying it constantly. At first, that feels wrong, not freeing, because your brain is used to equating awareness with protection. So when you reduce that awareness, it feels like risk, even when nothing has changed. That discomfort is important because it shows you something. You weren't using monitoring to manage money. You were using it to manage fear. And once you see that, the goal changes. It's no longer about perfect control. It's about building a new baseline, where stability isn't something you're waiting to lose. It's something you expect to continue. And that takes repetition, not of actions, but of experiences. Letting a full month pass without something going wrong and actually noticing it. Letting money stay in your account without checking it constantly and realizing it's still there. Those moments seem small, but they do something your childhood didn't allow. They create consistency. And consistency is what turns stability into safety. Not instantly, but over time. Because your identity with money doesn't change when your income changes. It changes when your experiences stop confirming the old pattern. When nothing went wrong stops feeling surprising and starts feeling normal. That's when something shifts. Quietly. You stop bracing. You stop preparing for the collapse. And for the first time, money stops feeling like something you have to survive and starts feeling like something that supports your life. This isn't about how much you have. It's about whether your system believes it can stay. Because until that belief changes, no amount will feel like enough. If this felt familiar, this channel is for people trying to understand why money doesn't feel the way it should. Money doesn't feel unstable because it is. It feels unstable because it once was. You're not checking your account for numbers. You're checking it for reassurance. Stability feels temporary when you were raised to expect change. Control isn't safety. It's what you reach for when safety's missing. You don't need more money to relax. You need to believe it can stay.